really, really hard, and they execute the system, and that's what it's all about.
Yes, sir.
Trust.
He's pretty
Big trust. Big trust, baby.
Hey, yes, sir. Right on cue. Hey, right on cue. Hey, let me.
All right, welcome back to the Jumbo Set. Today is Wednesday, January 31st. My name is Spencer Schultz. I will be joined on screen shortly by Jake Louque as we attempt to dive into a can of worms inside of another can of worms inside of another can of worms. What a week it has been, with the Ravens falling to the Chiefs 17-10, with the Baltimore Orioles additionally finally being bought by David Rubenstein and a group. And then today, the news breaking a few hours ago that Mike Macdonald, the Ravens whiz kid defensive coordinator, will be made the youngest head coach in the NFL at 36 years old, as the Seattle Seahawks waited patiently for him to finish his season and then swooped in. Back-to-back days of interviews. Seems like today was not much of an interview, but more so of getting Mike Macdonald there, signing the papers, things like that. From the sound of it, the Seahawks came to Baltimore to meet with Macdonald and then brought him there. And Mike Macdonald signs a 6-year deal, leaving the Baltimore Ravens. And it sounds like there will be additional fallout. Potentially Zach Orr could be going to Seattle. We also just had here that Jim Harbaugh has stolen a member of the analytics team, Corey Krawiec, who was the player evaluation and analytics manager with the Ravens, and he has been with the Ravens since 2013. So a good bit of turnover to be expected. I think more to come and a lot of conversations to unpack here. Jake should be hopping on in just a moment. Perfect timing as I queued that up, Jake. I just mentioned Mike Macdonald, kind of gave it as a headline. Mike Macdonald signs with the Seattle Seahawks to become their head football coach for 6 years on that deal, which I thought was a little alarming at first. Like, oh, wow, they must have had to pry him away. But it does sound like quite a few coaches. I know Canales also got 6 years there in Carolina and a few others as well. So initial thoughts, Jake.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the team, the franchise that I had my eyes on all along, really, with this. Feel like they're probably the most similar to the Ravens as far as the ones that were on the market, not only the way that they build the team, but the way that the organization is structured, sustained success, all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, I mean, like when they fired Carroll, that was kind of the one that the alarm bell started to go off. I think we talked about it privately. I was like, yeah, and probably on here too. I was like, yeah, that's kind of really the one to keep an eye on here. And as the opportunity started to dwindle down a little bit, I started to get my hopes up that they were just still kind of sitting there. And like, there was all this stuff out there about, oh, Dan Quinn, they just want to go and get him and kind of try to run all that kind of stuff back. I was like sitting there thinking to myself, like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, Macdonald is just the ideal version of Dan Quinn and is like 20 years younger than him. And like, it just didn't totally add up to me that he was still sitting there. And then it comes out right before the AFC Championship game that they were waiting to interview him. I don't know if they had interviewed him once already over Zoom and they had to wait or something like that, whatever the timeline was, but it came out that they were waiting to interview him again. And that's when I really started to get concerned that, yeah, this was going to be the one. And then Rappaport came out the other day and saw a hit of his live on TV. I haven't been on social media as much this week, but he said something to the effect of, Mike Macdonald is just kind of wowing teams, just blowing them away in these interviews. I think he used the phrase defensive Sean McVay. And that's when I was like, yep, he's gone. And so my reaction is, am I surprised to see him go? No, I think a lot of people were clinging to some false optimism and some fan fiction. And I totally get it. I think I was at certain points too. Thank you, Kyle. I think I was clinging to that at certain points too, but eventually I just kind of resigned myself to it. Like, these guys have ambitions and this guy is in my unbiased, but also I think correct opinion, one of the best head coaching candidates that I think I can remember in the last couple of years to hit the market effectively. So yeah, it sucks to see him go. And like, I've been thinking about it a lot today. And as I continue to annoyingly talk about it, I haven't been on Twitter or anything. So I've just been kind of internalizing a lot of these thoughts. And, this feels like a miss to me by the Ravens. I feel like, and I haven't talked about this at all. I don't think even with you or Cole or the guys, I would have just moved on from John and promoted Mike to head coach. That's where I'm at with it.
It's tough. We had this conversation to begin one of many tirades that I feel like I'm going to go on over the next, hour. That we had this conversation, Jake, about the midway point of the year before the Ravens started to click a little bit, when they probably around maybe the Browns loss, if I had to guess, somewhere around there, where, and there's wormholes of this. I said to the show, there's wormholes and wormholes and wormholes. And it's tough. John Harbaugh would be the second head coach ever fired after a conference championship game appearance. The last being Marty Schottenheimer, and I think 1988, pardon me. The Browns lose to the Denver Broncos, the second consecutive loss in the AFC Championship. And the only other time that a coach has left after losing specifically in a championship game was Bud Grant on the Minnesota Vikings in 1983, who retired rather and had 4 Super Bowl appearances there. And now John Harbaugh becomes the second oldest head coach in the NFL behind Andy Reid, who's 4 years older. John Harbaugh has had 1 Super Bowl appearance, and it is tough. But the thing that brought us to these conversations, Jake, happened in the AFC Championship game, where you just feel like in these moments where the game is slipping away, and it has happened in the playoffs 3 times. I don't really recall John during the Chargers game. I also don't really count that Chargers game, rookie quarterback switch, whatever, weird. But let's talk about the Titans game, the Bills game, the Chiefs game. And let's also not overlook that they did make it to the AFC Championship.
And to make it clear from my perspective, I should have elaborated. I don't even look at this as like fire John, AFC Championship game. I have my concerns about that game, but overall, I look at this as a very successful year. And I laid out AFC Championship. You got to do this if you want to renew your faith in me, or vice versa. And he did. And it's totally fine. But the way I look at it, he's 61. I think he's going to be 62 going into the season. Mike Macdonald is still in his 30s. It would more just be a bet on what I think Mike Macdonald is going to be, which is, to Ian Rappaport's comparison, a defensive Sean McVay. I just felt like, man, and it might be a little bit early on John, but the old Belichick kind of truism of you move on a little bit too early rather than too late. John's ideally got another 10 years in him. Pete was 72. He got ousted at that age.
10 would shock me.
Yeah, yeah, right. I mean, he might even, who knows what's going to happen? Maybe things will go sour and they will move on from him. It just feels like that's the absolute ideal scenario, is another 10 years out of John. And I have no complaints about the results, and I have no complaints about the way he runs things. I love the guy to death, but this just felt like you had the right guy in-house, and yeah, you're making a little bit of a gamble and you're going a little bit early, but I just feel like it's going to be worth it. I think the Seahawks are going to, I think the Seahawks are really going to love this guy.
I agree. To oversimplify, I made a comment here. Please like and subscribe if you're watching. If you're not watching on YouTube, we'd love to have you switch over to YouTube there as well. We have this comment here, and this is what it is from Mike here in the comments. He makes that dumb, panicked look, he meaning Harbaugh. He makes that face on the sideline, and the whole team plays like that. And when I think of when the Ravens didn't play like this, when was it? It was in the Ray Lewis years, the Ed Reed years. And hey, maybe that's part of the reason why those guys. But Harbaugh was young, like Macdonald is now. He was a young, well-spoken, clean-cut, energetic, kind of a, what's the right word? Fireball. He was pissy. He was salt and vinegar. He was enthusiastic. And he comes from a coaching family. He's a little different. Macdonald a little bit more of an introvert, but it just feels like, to oversimplify things, it doesn't have to do with X and his nose. It doesn't have to do with anything more than the fact that he's fucking old and he's fucking tired. He's not this energetic person that I feel like can pick up a team in these moments. And I feel like Macdonald is. And Macdonald is calm and did adjust well defensively and does get it. And I don't think he gets it. And I hate this notion that defensive coaches are stupid hires because offense is more important than defense. you have to understand football at such a higher level than me, than you, than any of the fucking analytics idiots talking on Twitter with their, algorithms that are going to be so perfect 10 years from now. And they definitely haven't changed 1,000 times already. And anytime they speak, they're 100% right and it'll never change. Kyle Shanahan, we've talked about this on this podcast. Kyle Shanahan's defenses are always strong. He always has the right hires. He develops coaches well on that side of the football, brings in the right guys to develop these coaches. And to John Harbaugh's credit, he does too. What is Mike Macdonald? He is a product of the Baltimore Ravens. He did coach at Georgia as a graduate assistant for a couple years, ends up getting in the Ravens intern program. But I don't think that's why Mike Macdonald became successful. I think he became successful because he's smart, because he's intrinsically driven, and because he's obsessed and he loves it. So it does feel like a missed opportunity. You look at New England that was able to kind of keep Gerard Mayo, who probably would have been a very hot name, and have this succession plan. And I love the way you put it, Jake, too early instead of too late. And with what the Ravens do have in Lamar Jackson, having the quarterback is half the battle. And I don't think it would be that hard to get back to the divisional round. And I don't think it'll be that hard to get back to where they are. John has done great things. And speaking of which, who do I think will be the defensive coordinator to replace Macdonald? I thought it might be Weaver. I'm now thinking it's going to be Wilson. Wilson has gotten a ton of interest. A ton of people around the league apparently thought it was a huge mistake for the Eagles to let him go and go with Desai instead. And I think Wilson is going to be a really strong defensive coordinator. And that does speak to the credit of Harbaugh, who does develop on the defensive side of the football players and coaches nonstop for over 15 years. So you have that faith, but it just, as it happens, as it's fresh, as the wound hasn't scabbed yet, it's just John not providing a lift on the sideline and the Ravens kind of being in that same position. While we do overlook the Texans game and the fact that they did stomp on the neck of someone they were supposed to and score touchdowns and shut them down offensively, all those things, ultimately, he's older. Mike Macdonald's fresh, and that's why it's a little different than a Rex Ryan or a Chuck Pagano or a Marvin Lewis years ago. So this has happened time and time again, but and maybe it's recency bias. I do just think that Macdonald is a special guy. And again, I don't like you. I never thought I would really get sick of John Harbaugh, and I think I am sick as he's getting older, as he's Grandpa John a little bit more than he is the John Harbaugh that we think of. And this is very morbid, but I had to bury my childhood dog today, not my dog Tutu that lives with me, but my mom's that I, got as my 13th birthday present. He stayed with my mom. I ended up getting another dog, but I just think of, the simile in my mind is that I have some trouble thinking of Puck, rest in peace, when he was 7 and 6 and 5. I have trouble thinking of what John was like at the beginning and in the early years there. I'm more enamored with what's more recent. My memory works better on the short term than the long term. And what I do remember of John was a different person. And I think that different person is what the Ravens need right now to get over the hump from where they were with Billick. And maybe it is bias, historical bias, just what I know from following the Ravens all this time. But it feels like we're getting right into that Billick territory. I don't know if the Ravens will have the dog shit year. You never know with injuries. We'll knock on wood about that. You never know. They could be 5-12 from injuries and whatever. But I don't think it'll get quite like that. But Billick was in the category of got rid of him a little earlier than maybe. It was kind of controversial. Could have maybe coached more after and ended up going to the TV side of things.
He was also really on borrowed time. Like, he got brought back literally on conditional status. He had to kind of grovel to Bisciotti a little bit.
Well, I'm wrong there then. You know better than me from the season in between. I thought it was a little bit more controversial, but
he was still, you're right. He was younger. Like, it was, at the time. And so it made sense. But yeah, he had really burned.
He was at a similar place where Harbaugh is now today. And so maybe I'm just saying, I think that sticks out to me because it's about the Ravens. Not sure if my internet connection is getting crappy here.
Yeah, it's going a little in and out, just so you know.
Let me try and close.
But while you're doing that, we've got Taylor. Thanks for hanging with us. He says, fellas, first time, long time. Do you feel there's an in-house Harbs replacement now, or is the post-Harbs guy outside the organization? So that's kind of like where I wanted to go with this a little bit, is that like in 2008, when they made this John Harbaugh hire, they were dead lead pipe lock set on Jason Garrett. They were dead set on making him the guy. And sometimes the best move is the one you didn't make. John Harbaugh was no one in 2007 going into 2008. I don't think many people really knew too much about him. I think he was kind of an afterthought candidate interview. I don't know the exact history of that. Maybe I'll get into it someday for something. But, he kind of wound up being that second choice. He kind of wound up being the bridesmaid, and that wound up being the right hire. And you look within this organization right now, Anthony Weaver strikes me as every bit the leader of men that John Harbaugh, or, he could be every bit the leader of men that John Harbaugh is. He's very charismatic in front of the mic. Seems like he has the ear of these guys in the locker room. He's a former player. He could relate to them very well. That would kind of be that Gerard Mayo type hire, which I do like for New England, by the way. So yeah, I could definitely see Weaver being that guy. Zach Orr, he's been in there for a little while. You mentioned him as a defensive coordinator candidate. Maybe you hang on to him for a couple of years. We'll see what happens. And then Wilson as well. He could be another option. So very good options within this organization. I'm disappointed to lose Macdonald for sure, because I think he was the best among them. But if it winds up being Anthony Weaver at some point, I would be totally fine with that. I think that would be a very good way to move into a new era while kind of keeping that same sort of vibe within the building, which is what you were hoping to do with Macdonald. Obviously, you lose the defensive scheme and that kind of stuff, which is difficult. But, there's still plenty of good candidates in-house, and then plenty of candidates still out there. Ben Johnson staying in Detroit, Bobby Slowick staying in Houston. If you want to go that offensive route, maybe, if you mentioned having that disaster of a year, who knows? Maybe we'll see what happens. But yeah, not totally expecting it next year, but it could be. And there's going to be a lot of good candidates out there. So it does suck to lose Mike. I think he's going to kill it in Seattle, but overall, it's not the end of the world. I was saying this I was kind of saying this as a joke on Sunday after the loss. Getting a little philosophical, like life just kind of goes on, and you tend to think of things in the moment that are like this as like apocalyptic and world altering and that kind of stuff. And maybe they are in some ways, but like life just kind of goes on, man. And things have a way of working out, especially.
Mike Macdonald was always going to leave
Yeah.
from the moment he the Ravens beat the 49ers. Before that, it probably felt set in stone. And the two things I want to spray out there are, number one, Macdonald left, went to Michigan, and fucking beat the shit out of Ohio State, which is why I think he's special. And number two, the one thing I will say is that if there's someone who understands how to maintain the good qualities of Harbaugh, it's probably someone that's been on the staff for 10 years, and that's Mike Macdonald too. But it was always going to happen. The Ravens never moved this way. The shock is what I don't get.
Where they really got fucked is that Seattle didn't interview him earlier and then just agree to terms with him, and then the Ravens could have hired Minter before Harbaugh went to LA.
Maybe. But I feel like Minter's been with you. Who knows? Sure, that could have been.
He probably would have gone with Jim either way. But that's, God damn it, that would have been perfect.
It would have, and maybe we end up seeing a Ben Johnson or a Slowick or one of these other guys next year. I will say my apocalyptic take is that this will be John Harbaugh's last year in Baltimore. I will say, and that's what blows my mind about it. I just feel like the writing's on the wall. I think they are going to look back and say maybe a little too soon. Who knows? I mean, Mike Macdonald could end up being like a Vrabel, medium success playoff coach.
You look at what Seattle has going on right now. Like, they're not going to have a very high pick. It might be tough to get themselves a quarterback in there right away. Geno Smith
is fine. Plus,
he's going to win you 9-10 games, sure, but I'm not expecting him to turn that offense around right away. I think he'll capitalize on the good defensive talent they have there. But yeah, I don't know. I think he will ultimately figure it out though. And yeah, I think you're right. Even if it isn't Harbaugh's last year, what has he got? Another 5 in him, like we said, 10 at best.
His contract's over, I believe, after 20. I don't know if it's over after next year or the year after. One of the two, though. I think they did that 3-year extension in 2022. So that should be 2022, 2023, 2024. I think he's done after. I think his contract's up after this year as well. Right. So comment here with him, why let Macdonald go? Because the Ravens just don't do drastic things. And like I said, it would be very, in the grand scheme of things, and to your point, Jake, we view things as apocalyptic and the shock and the instant value and the Twitter and this and that. Again, the last coach to be fired after a conference championship game appearance was in the 80s. It was Marty Schottenheimer, Rest in peace.
It's
So
40 years, guys. Like
the Ravens aren't going to do that. They aren't going to make a shocking move. I think they should have. I think you think they should have.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people see the writing. We are not in charge. We are idiots. And they move slowly. They base everything off of stability. And I'm sure they would have loved. I bet they even had a discussion with Macdonald. I bet they had a 3-year plan with Macdonald. I bet they had that conversation. I'm confident. I would put that minus 340. And they said, look, we would love to keep you here, and you're next.
Yeah, and I think what ultimately sucks about that stability thing is I think this would have been its own form of stability. Like we mentioned, he's just a little John Harbaugh. Like he's just another John Harbaugh coming off the conveyor belt, but he's got the defensive stuff on tape that tells you that he's a special guy in that regard, and he can command that locker room, I think, and I think he will in Seattle. So that's kind of where, and I totally agree, that's probably where Bisciotti's head is at, but that is tough to me because like this just would have been, and that's what I keep saying, like it's nothing against John Harbaugh. John, it's not you, it's me. It's just that like this feels like the right time.
And again, I just genuinely feel, what is the drop off of someone that's been under Harbaugh for a decade?
Yeah.
And sure, a lot of that was as a neophyte, as someone that was, shoved into an office, a little tiny closet somewhere with, I think, Chris Horton and the gentleman who is now the like VP of football strategy for Washington. But they just move slowly. So that's why I don't get the shock of it. And again, like it does. And I know that people get into they did fall short. They do fall short in the playoffs. And there's comments as like, oh, they only won one game out of 2019 and 2023, but it's like, yeah, they only played 2 and we're in the
they skipped the wild card round twice. That might not count as a win, but like I think we can.
It is a win. It is a win.
And what's really tough about it, and I've been thinking about this a lot. I mean, that game on Sunday, like they didn't deserve to win nearly, but if you get a little lucky with a few of those bad calls, and I'm not going to complain about the refs and say that was the issue, but if you get a little lucky there, and if you get a little lucky and not have Zay Flowers get a ball punched out, and you get a little lucky,
then you at least feel better. Everybody feels better. It looks better. The score is closer.
If you even walk out of that game, let's say they lost that game 24-20, you'd feel a lot better about it right now, I think. So that's just what sucks about them playing so poorly. Josh Richter, I wanted to just touch on this. He's saying it's just surprising to set a precedent with EDC and then with such a sure thing in Mike Mac that the same would happen. It stinks, to be honest, and call it recency bias, but it definitely feels the wrong way. I just think it's different between front office and coaching. I just feel like with coaching, like coaches are kind of much more, it's like the stock market where like you're super hot right now if you're Mike Macdonald and you got to strike while the iron is hot. So I feel like with EDC, thumbs up. I feel like with
coaches take faster blame and fall, and there's more volatility.
It's much more immediate. It's much more forward facing. Like with the front office, you can have a couple bad drafts in a row, and then maybe you start calling for the GM, but nobody was going to start calling for Eric DaCosta. Like, so I think I totally get what you guys are saying with that, and I agree. I wish that it worked out that way, but I just feel like it's very different coaching to front office.
It is, and again, like it's just tough because it just is like in specifically just a couple, it's like 3 playoff games. I feel like John didn't bring enough during the game, and maybe that matters. Maybe it doesn't. I have no idea. But then there's this, then we get into the narratives of Harbaugh, and then the Harbaugh haters get to come back out. They've been silent for a while. And then suddenly it's a whole, John doesn't call play. Guys, John Harbaugh's a defensive coach. He coached DBs. He coached positions. He knows X's and O's. They churn out defensive coaches left and right. They have 3 fucking more that are already getting DC interviews. They had four defensive coaches on this staff that were getting either head coach or pretty major defensive coordinator interviews. Denard Wilson is I think it's going to be Wilson because he got very serious consideration, is very highly respected around the league, and that should be fine. Like the X's and O's part of it, I think is going to be fine. I don't know that there's some big fallout. It's just, it feels like the Ravens are in a touch of purgatory. And I think people are upset because it was Roman's fault. And then he eventually gets fired. And then now, so who's left is Harbaugh. The constant 2 forces are Lamar Jackson of the grand scheme, the quarterback and the head coach at this point. So now people are saying, we'll get rid of the coach, change that now. And it would be unprecedented. It would basically be unprecedented in our lifetime as 30-year-olds. Not quite, Jake, I know. But as you know, in our little age group, has not happened in the NFL one time. And the Ravens are never going to act that way.
And we're going to do a full pod talking about like the rebuilding in this offseason and stuff. But I just think it is going to be a bit of a transition year. It's time to get Stanley off the books. I mean, you know, that performance on Sunday, it's nothing to inspire confidence that he's
PFF grade was 78 in pass protection, which was bonkers to me.
Yeah, and like that's fine and all, but like I know what I saw. I got my model, and it's these two eyes sitting right here in my head, and I was sitting.
The pay is too high for the play.
Yeah, exactly. And if he wants to come back on lower pay, maybe. But I'd rather just kind of turn the page there, restart the engine. A couple defensive players. We'll see what happens with Clowney and Van Noy. It would be nice to maybe bring one of them back, but overall, you're probably going to have to overhaul there. It's going to be a little bit of a transition. Cornerback, again, a transition. You had some stopgaps there. It's probably not going to work out stopgap-wise the way that you would have hoped. So ultimately, it just kind of...
Eric DeCosta has already made some comments, too, that they're basically, going to have to be more thrifty in the way they act because of the quarterback contract that they have.
Yeah, and I hope that he doesn't...
There's probably a lot more truth in that statement than anyone will acknowledge.
Yeah, and I'd hope they just don't take that too far. Because like they kind of did spend a little bit this year, and we saw the results play out really well. Like, and you're not going to have to go as crazy as you did this year. You're not going to have to pay Beckham $15 million. In fact, that was probably a bad investment overall. I liked what he brought, but for what he got paid, it probably wasn't.
The reason it wasn't good was because of DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that would have been that could have been the move there.
And I feel like they wanted to pay someone that is more of a smiley locker room presence than someone who turns on the fire, turns up the heat when he's not getting the football. I think they wanted like the let's be friends vibe. Let's all, they paid him to be a leader a little bit more than a productive player. And
I think Beckham was also like actually on the market for a while. I think Hopkins, it was a trade right for a while, and then he got released, and they could have signed him still, but it would have been pretty expensive. So
it went really quickly, and it felt like the Ravens were in a weird spot because of Jackson's contract. They signed Beckham first, and it felt like Beckham kind of just sifted out there for a while.
Yeah, this is part of it where Baltimore football history is like the losses are an effing embarrassment to the fans, and like it is annoying. Like you can't come out and do the run pass splits that they did, and you can't have Lamar looking panicked. And I think Lamar, you can blame him if you want. I do to an extent, but like you take your cues from the lead guy, and I think John probably did have a little bit of that 1,000-yard stare going on Sunday.
We have Mike says they released was it the Cardinals released DeAndre Hopkins?
Yeah, exactly. They had already signed Beckham, and like there was a ton of speculation about whether Hopkins was going to be a trade guy, and then they released him like well after. So,
right. So, I mean, I guess to scale it back, we definitely want to talk about that game. I mean, you and I were on here sitting right where I'm sitting, going crazy, whatever, and it's been days, and there's been time, and you mentioned the run pass splits, things like that, and I think these things like. We're not going to fucking remember this game the way we remember the Troy Polamalu pick 6 and the Billy Cundiff miss. Like, they didn't get it done. It sucked. It hurts to lose in the game before the Super Bowl. You don't get much better opportunity than that. You don't. It was a blundered opportunity. I don't know. They still like. It's just hard because
like I said earlier, if Flowers gets into, I know these are big ifs, but if Flowers gets into the end zone there, maybe you have one more productive drive. It's all of a sudden it's 17-17. Like in the fourth quarter, it does suck that if you would have told me that they had scored 17 points and the Ravens would have lost, I would have said you're fucking crazy. And that's really what does think about it. But if they had a couple plays, maybe that taunting call doesn't go their way, they get in the end zone on that drive. And I don't know, maybe if fucking what's his face, Mohammed bin Salman doesn't have that amazing catch at the end to ice the game. It's just, and these are the margins really. They're so thin, and that's why having a Patrick Mahomes and to an extent an Andy Reid, I mean, that really could be all you need. So I don't know. I'm rambling at this point, but
the three people that I'll say two that I like. There's been three things that combined for me from three different people that talk about this game. Chris Long, highly recommend go checking out his separately. Greenlight Pod is amazing. They are so good. My favorite content to consume. So good. Nate Tice of The Athletic. I think he's still with The Athletic. Ted Nguyen of The Athletic basically had completely opposing viewpoints in response to this game. Both guys kind of break down the tape. I see both sides. So Nate Tice says, I don't really get all the hoopla about the run pass stuff because it was there. Like, it was close. It was there. But then Ted Nguyen looks at it and says, it was always going to be kind of close and tough to pull off because the Ravens were basically trying to take deep shots, scared of the Chiefs. They didn't go take advantage of running the football, yada, yada, yada. Talked about the power play with Gus Edwards. Talked about what they did on 4th and 1 with Lamar Jackson, 2 explosive runs there on design runs in tight quarters. And it just ends up playing to the strength of the Chiefs. The other thing I saw is, I think on Glenn Clark's show, Trey Wingo, I think, joined him and said that, what was it? Dick Vermeil used to get in Mike Martz's headset and be like, just hand the ball to Marshall Faulk. Like, just give Marshall Faulk the ball. Quit dicking around. Give Marshall Faulk the ball. And I agree with that. I don't know if you're muted, Jake. I can't tell if you're talking.
No, I'm not.
Oh, okay, sorry. But yeah, so it's like, it just was never going to work. And that's why but then I go deeper. And to your point, Jake, it's like, it felt like even if the pass interference was called and the Ravens score a touchdown, which who fucking knows? They fumbled the ball on the 1 several times in the last couple of years in big moments. If Valdez-Scanlon, it just felt like no matter what they did, if they ran the ball better, if they ran the ball more, if Lamar doesn't throw it to Isaiah Likely, if the pass interference is called, if, it just felt like they were never going to win. It just felt like the Chiefs were always going to win that game. They made plays when they needed to. The Chiefs came into Baltimore. The shit going on with Justin Tucker, I can't even that will make me lose my mind. That is the most obscene thing possible. They come into Baltimore, act like dicks. They step on the football field. There's a little fight pregame. The Ravens go 3 and out, and then the Chiefs go score a touchdown. And then it was over. Ravens go 3 and out. The Chiefs score a touchdown, take a lead immediately. Bang, 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 bang. And there was a comment here I did want to touch on. Somebody asked the question when I was watching, you notice going back to the tape, it's like Mike Macdonald went and played man against the Chiefs early, which is the number 1 no-no. You don't play press man against Patrick Mahomes. He's too accurate. He buys too much time. He hurts you with his legs. And he just, on paper, on tape, in reality, torches it. So they score 2 touchdowns, then switch to a more zone-heavy approach, shut the Chiefs down. It felt like maybe Macdonald was like, I'm going to delay playing zone so that we can lose early instead of late. But then the Ravens go down, and then they start panicking. And then they start pushing the ball downfield and not taking what was there. And it's just funny to me now because I feel like Ravens fans and the analysis, it's just like watching the fucking Bills. It's literally just the Bills. And I guess mega culpa, it's Jumbo set. We do mega culpa. The one I want to start with is that in my head, the two things I'll start with. Number 1, in my head, and I didn't really say it on the podcast. Maybe I did. I thought the Ravens were going to run for 200 yards in the Chiefs. I thought Lamar Jackson, I put $200, which is 2 units for me, on Lamar Jackson to run for 80-plus alternate yards. And I thought the Ravens might have been the dragon. I thought the Ravens might be the dragon, might have been good enough, might have played well enough, might have. And that was the stupidest thought I could ever have. Because, of course, Patrick Mahomes is the dragon. Of course, Travis Kelce, who I think I kind of nailed in the sense of he didn't hurt them after the catch. He didn't do a thing after the catch. But the timing and the precision of Mahomes to Kelce was so good. The Kyle Hamilton touchdown, it's like, what could Kyle Hamilton have done? The ball was fucking perfectly placed away from him, and Kelce made a very tough catch. On 4th down, they roll out, and over Stevens, who's in good position, jumping 8-foot catch radius, Kelce snags the ball away. So it's the shock, it's the disappointment, it's the fact that you are 1 game from the Super Bowl, I think forces these polarizing things. But at the end of the day, it's like last year, Tyler Huntley was a starting quarterback against the Bengals, and no one, the helplessness, the hapless feeling going into that game of the Ravens fans that I see and listeners and things like that, it felt so different. And it was improvement, and it did get better. But then the sting of kind of seeing them do the same fucking thing for the 3rd time. They did it against the Bills. They did it against the Titans, where they aren't really running the ball. They're not really in control. They don't have a lead in any of those games. Do they take a lead? And I don't know. And then you go compare it to the 2 playoff wins they do have against kind of lesser teams that aren't in that, stratosphere of actual Super Bowl contenders, the Titans and these Texans teams. It did kind of start rocky, right? The Titans went up 10-0. The Ravens came back and won. And the Texans game we do overlook, but it was a rookie quarterback and a rookie head coach. So the Ravens should have won that game. What happened should have happened for a normal team. So I don't know. I don't know. And I just disagree with this too. Like, I just think, like, we talk about the Ravens shutting the Chiefs out in the second half. The comment here, 2022 is our best playoff performance 11 years. Thanks to Mike Mac. I guess it means 2023.
Okay, this is where I'm getting lost. Like, we don't have to mythologize the guy. Like, I love him.
Exactly. He was great. He was great. He was Rex Ryan.
It's very easy to say, like, everything would be fixed. They would win the Super Bowl if they would hire him. I don't even think that would happen right away. At least I think he might at some point in his career, but it's very hard to do. I just feel like this was the time to make the switch. And I mean, continue. I didn't mean to get you.
No, you're exactly right. I've been rambling long enough about it, but it's just, it just the reason everyone hates it is because it kind of looks the same, and it looks the same as what happens to the Bills. At the end of the game, it's Josh Allen having to drop back 100 times in a row and drive down the field and go score a touchdown. And the thing I want to talk about too, the reason that I'm really upset, which I usually don't get into this stuff, but in the playoffs, it's just a little different. I don't know. Maybe I'm just dumb. It's just that there feels like a complete victim mentality on the Ravens sideline. I think that Lamar Jackson, Harbaugh's not helping. He's probably culprit number one.
Yeah,
Lamar Jackson gets so fucking angry and emotional and starts pressing. And we just watch Mahomes do what Brady did and take what's there. Dink, 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 dink. And what did Allen do? What did we say on the preview show, Jake?
Yeah.
You have to take what's there or you're not going to win. If you try to press, they will get you. You can't kill them that way.
And that's exactly what the Chiefs do to teams. They just it's like Watchmen, the TV show. They just put you in the fucking looking glass and you just lose your mind and you just do crazy things against them. I think back to that 2021 game where they're going for it on every fourth down and they're just doing all this crazy shit and they just pull out all the stops and they barely beat them by the hairs of their chinny chin chin. This Chiefs team is not as good as that one, but just because you have the Mahomes factor doing all the crazy stuff he does with Kelsey, they still just put your mind in a blender and they force you to do crazy, crazy, crazy things. And I think that's part of what we saw.
We've got Guru in here. Hello, Guru.
Hey, Guru. Sat next to him at the game.
Oh, that's awesome. Guru said there's something called Destiny. The Monday morning news was already written on Sunday morning. Celebrate what a great season it was and how much we enjoyed it. And that's the thing. There's been so many people waiting for this moment so that it can feel and look just like it did a year ago. But last year didn't look like this year. They did get the 1 seed. They did have awesome wins. They did win a playoff game. They did make it back to the conference championship game. And at the end of the day, like, I do think the Ravens should have made a move from Harbaugh. I do think Macdonald is the guy. Although it looks, love you too, Guru, looks much like Rex Ryan, right? It's just Mike Macdonald's not a loudmouth. It's the same thing. Young, defensive genius goes and gets a job somewhere else.
He's like a well-adjusted Rex Ryan too. Like, I think this is going to work out in a big way.
It'll work out for a long time.
Yeah, Rex worked out for a little while, but he was very combustible. Like, I think Mike is much more kind of
even keel, introverted, balanced personality, hard work. Like, go read the Jeff Zrebeck article on him. If you're somehow a Seahawks fan, whatever, go read Jeff Zrebeck's article.
Listen to this. I mean, who knows?
Sure. And we have, Tyler Shore's here. The Ravens beat Brady more than anyone. The Mahomes excuse is going to get tired and not true genuine. The NFL seems to be different then.
Yeah. It was pre-rookie contracts. So the contracts were different. You could stay competitive for longer. Quarterbacks.
The physicality, the game was different. What does Brady always talk about? I mean, the rules have made it a lower quality product.
And it made more sense with Brady. That's kind of what I'm talking about, the chaos factor with Mahomes. Like, Brady, it was just a drop back, dink and dunk offense. Like, it was tough to beat, but he could be gotten. I think Mahomes is better. I think Mahomes can play better off schedule. I think it creates chaos. And I don't totally disagree with your point, Tyler, but it's just, I think it's going to be even harder than it was with Brady. I really, really do. We've only seen one team do it to him, the Bengals. And,
Brady does get discounted because he was more of a manager in a defensive era at first, but what he turned into was such a high talent, high impact, incredible quarterback. And that's how Mahomes started. Someone made the comparison of Like Mahomes is more like Dan Marino, but he wins like Brady. Like the talent from the time he first threw a football in the NFL was
he's kind of like he's more to me like Elway with the ability to move around, like Elway in like a competent organization that wasn't blowing it.
Sure. But the winning is paramount, and 6 straight AFC Conference Championship games, going for another Super Bowl. And that's what Chris Long talks about in the Greenlight podcast, that Patrick Mahomes basically, and Andy Reid, and throw Kelsey in there too, sure, are ruining legacies. Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and Lamar Jackson are fighting for number 2. And that's the unfortunate reality. And I think people have trouble accepting that. But in the playoffs, they turn it up a notch. Spagnuolo is better. Mahomes is better. Kelsey just passed Jerry Rice. Like, is it breaking Jerry Rice's playoff records? What is going on? They get
this Kelsey. You can,
and I'll keep quoting Chris Long. He says they get 20% better in the playoffs. That's as much better as you'll see anyone get. They're better in the playoffs than they are in the regular season. And a lot of teams are 10% worse than they are in the regular season. The Ravens might be 20% worse. Who knows? But yeah. And there's another good point. Reid is the oldest coach in the NFL. We're going to see a transition at some point to a different coach. Reid is one of the best offensive minds of all time. Kelsey, very well. This could be
that's almost where I am a little more optimistic, is Kelsey leaving. Like, I think that is going to be a significant transition for them. They'll probably find another guy, but it's not going to be the same there.
Watch him end up with Brock Bowers somehow. And then, the 49ers, the 49ers did feed Christian McCaffrey and did kind of do those things, but
their offense also runs through him. They don't run through their quarterback, to be fair.
Right. And you don't want to go down. I think another part of that exact conversation is that you don't want to go down with saying we wish we put the ball in Lamar Jackson's hands, because that also leads to him getting pissed for a long time. And, it's not like he can't check into a fucking run play, man.
Yeah. I mean, and it's like, honestly, the times that they did run it, I wasn't like super wow. They had the 4th and 1 where they ran it with him, obviously. And then, a couple of
on top of that too, is I just think that this is what happened. They lost the coin toss. Ravens go 3 and out. The Chiefs score a touchdown. Uh-oh. Now we know we're going to be chasing them a little bit. Ends up being 14-7. And I just think they get into the sense of, we're in a deficit with possessions because the Chiefs are going to start with a +1 in the second half of possessions. So they're going to have to outscore them by a lot. The Ravens are going to have to score 3+ touchdowns from that position. And they thought the best way to do that is probably to throw the ball, which takes less time off the clock and will increase the number of possessions achievable. And to your point, Jake, they got close. They got that close to making it a field goal game late in the game, that close. And man, oh man, how many times are we going to have to watch goal line fumble issues? CJ Mosley years ago, freaking Tyler Huntley, freaking this, freaking Antonio Brown. It's like the goal line, all these things. So
looks like it might be legislative.
It's not an excuse, Tyler Shores. It's the reality of what happened. Did I say it was a good idea? This is what drives me crazy. And these
we're not trying to absolve them.
I'm trying to explain what I think happened, not say it was good or bad.
Yeah, no, you're not trying to absolve them. You're not.
I didn't say they should have done
retweets
it.
Do not
job,
equal
guys.
Retweets do not equal endorsements. You're not endorsing it.
Retweets don't equal exactly. Thank you. Yeah. So that has been driving me insane all week. Like I made a little video that's on here. You can go check it out. The PI was insane that it was not a non-call,
especially with the way they were calling it the other way. Come on, Sean. Like we knew
that was unbelievable.
Yeah, I didn't want to feed into that going into the game. I didn't want to focus on that negative energy. I didn't want to be an excuse maker, and I'm still not going to be. But he called a really bad game in favor of the Chiefs. Let's just call it like it is. It's totally fine.
The tripping thing, I don't know. I feel like I'm tripping over the tripping thing, whatever. But
the Kyle Van Noy penalty was bad. Flowers, I guess he taunted, whatever. I hate that fucking penalty just as it exists. So if you want to call it, but it's just stupid.
I get that one, and I do feel like it did. It's like I want to say the yards didn't matter because they got the yards right back, but it just of course was going to parlay into something bad somehow, and it did immediately.
Right.
So
Jiffy saying the next step with Lamar, working on managing those emotions. I agree. And like, to be fair, he had never been in this spot before. Like we talk about the playoff success, like, and it didn't look perfect.
I don't think he played in if I'm not mistaken, please feel free. I'm sure we've got some people that know crazy Lamar stuff. I don't think he played in a state semi in high school. The biggest game he played at in college was against Deshaun Watson and Clemson. They were severely overmatched. That game is incredible. I think that was 2016. Louisville, Clemson. That game was so good. Go watch that. And then this was the biggest stage he's ever been on.
Yeah.
And what happened to the Chiefs the first time they made it to the AFC Championship game? And hey, it took longer for the Ravens to get there. And again, they're better. They just are. But D Ford lines up offsides, cost them the game there.
Yeah, and Zay was playing at Boston College this time a year ago. Like, it is a different level. So these guys, you can excuse them a little bit for mental lapses. I think they'll be better.
The leverage is much, much higher. The pressure, the leverage, the situation is much, much stronger. And you do need these. And that we talked about scar tissue. I thought they had enough. Mega culpa. They didn't. They didn't have enough. Now they do have some scar tissue. Zay Flowers now has something that's going to burn in his brain while he runs all year. While he's training, he's going to think about that moment. I'll tell you that much.
Right. Yeah. And I think, you got some people talking about like where it was lost with the coin toss and stuff. I know you're kind of saying that as well. I agree with that to an extent, but also like they tied it up and it was on a pretty crazy freaking play with the escaping the sack and throwing it to Flowers downfield. That should have jump-started their offense. That should have settled.
But at the same time, it just wasn't structured. It just wasn't right. If Lamar beats them by doing that for 4 quarters, it is the greatest performance in the history of football. And that is not something you can expect out of a player. We have Baltimore sports history. What do you think about Lamar as a out quick, kill with 1,000 cuts quarterback?
He kind of was that this year.
Made tremendous improvements there this year. I think I wanted this Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs is incredible in pass pro. Is a great option as a running back. Justice Hill was so good. Like I said, I've never seen a player step up to the plate as a running back in pass pro mid-year. That is like being able to hit a curveball, like working into hitting a curveball mid-year. Like it is really tough to mentally and physically get yourself in the same season to be able to step up and do that consistently. I think you're eating glass. Justice Hill's a tinier guy as an NFL player, and he was eating glass against his own nature. And what ends up happening? 2 sacks in this game two sacks in this game because of Justice Hill. One of the biggest things I think they blew schematically. This is why I'm running the ball, whatever. I'm furious with Todd Monken over this. Last week, the Texans brought pressure. Justice Hill was okay, but it clogs the pocket when the back stays in. There's a linebacker covering the back. That makes 2 more bodies around the quarterback. It congests things. So in the second half, Justice Hill starts fast to the flat. Get out of there. Get that linebacker out of there. Clear out the space. And they didn't do that again. They watched it happen against the Texans. The definition of stupidity came back and did the same thing again. Clogged it up with Justice Hill. They need a back man. And I know everybody hates running backs, but good Lord, bring me I don't even want to say the name I'm going to say, but
it's Derrick Henry. We all know you're thinking Derrick Henry.
I'm thinking Najee Harris. Bring me a 3-down back that knows what they're doing in the pass game, that you can ask to stay in, that you can ask to run routes. Trey Benson. Yes, absolutely. Trey Benson in the draft. I need a 3-down running back in Baltimore. Very, very, very much so. And that drove me crazy. The Ravens we've been talking about it for years. I think Roman, a whole other conversation, people saying, you don't know shit about coaches because you like Greg Roman, whatever. Greg Roman's flaw was that the backs were basically a wasted human in the pass game. They were never confident. It was never quick. Mark Ingram did some nice things year 1 because he was a vet that knew what to do, but younger backs couldn't get them there. So bring me a back. Bring me a real 3-down. Bring me a young Josh Jacobs. Bring me a real running back. And I think that helps take pressure off of Lamar as he transitions. The Ravens, I think, need a back in an offensive line. Ronnie Stanley, you mentioned, he can't play for that cap number. They need to approach him. He needs to take less money or see if he can get more money elsewhere. And I mean, all right, no, not like Dalvin Cook, who just got here 3 weeks ago. Yeah, let's go ask Dalvin Cook to pick up and pass, bro, who just signed 3 weeks ago, and he'll know everything and get it smooth. So they signed Dalvin Cook because they like him more than Melvin Gordon. That was what it was. And Melvin Gordon never touched the field. So, I don't know. It was J.K. Dobbins. He could do those things. He did whiff and pass pro against the Bills with DJ Fluker and prevent a touchdown from happening and all that stuff. Saquon, I mean, I feel like he's going to cause a lot, whatever. We'll get into all that kind of stuff, but it's just that drove me crazy in this game. The paper cuts were there. The scrambling was there. I really like, that's what I don't, the run stuff is, I think there's shades of gray on running the football specifically. I just don't understand the kill shot thing, man. And I think it is the pressure. Josh Allen just did it last week. We talk about it. You go for the kill shot. The Chiefs will not let you. Joe Burrow's the only one that's done that. And the Chiefs that was Mahomes' worst game in the playoffs by far.
They also got a little unlucky. I think they had like the fumble or whatever. Maybe I misremember.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so it did, the football gods were on the Bengals side that day. But man, just the scrambling can work as the run game, get the back out of there, clear out the space. That happened at times, but instead it was, pushing the ball downfield. And then part of it is, Rita tweeted about it and said it's a shame that they've made him like almost spiteful of his own talents. And I'm like, I was like, that's so stupid. I don't think this stuff matters. I think it's just you're trying to make plays. But then I thought back to the white sleeves against the Bills, against the Bills after the 49ers game. The 49ers Bay Area radio host makes the, racial overtones that Lamar Jackson's good because he has dark skin and runs the ball well. And so Lamar wears white sleeves. And I was like, man, he definitely hears all this stuff. All of these things
for the game. He listens to all this shit. Like you can tell they're not bad for a running back, like going all the way back to that, going into the playoffs this year. He openly acknowledged, I need to be better in these things. Like he listens to this stuff for sure.
It's hard and it's a lot. And he is a superhero because he's overcome so much of it. And at the same time, it's like why all of this drama makes me laugh that comes with the result of a loss. I get it. They were close, but like, according to a lot of people, they were never supposed to come close to this. A year ago, 5 years ago.
That's where all this apocalyptic, they missed their window stuff thing. It just kind of like, that's why I'm not on Twitter right now. Like this stuff just doesn't mean anything. Like they could very well be back here next year. They could very well not. They could be there the year after that. Like I've been saying, and maybe it's a little too meta, a little too, overlooking things a little bit too much, but life just kind of goes on. And there's going to be a window next year because he's going to be 28 years old. And the year after that, he's going to be 29 years old. And Eric DeCosta's still going to be here. Steve Bisciotti's still going to be here. We'll see what happens with John Harbaugh. Like all this stuff about windows and this and that. Like, I don't know, man. Like as long as you got Jackson, you got a window. And then maybe they'll find a quarterback after him. I don't know. But like, it's not the end of the world, guys. It's really not. I know everyone just wants to freak out and lose their minds. And I definitely have a little bit here and there over the last few days. But, I think we just got to pull it back a little bit when we start to talk about never going to do this, never going to do that. Peyton Manning was never going to win a Super Bowl to a lot of people in 2005.
I remember that stuff, man. I remember being shocked at how bad he was in the playoffs.
The Ravens were never going to win a Super Bowl, according to Lamar Woodley with Joe Flacco. Not in this lifetime.
According to me, I said that.
Yeah.
My friend Clay.
You did say
when Joe Flacco threw the pick six his rookie year, I turned to my friend Clay on the couch and said, Joe Flacco will never win a Super Bowl in Baltimore. Yeah. And I was wrong. We're all wrong all the time.
And it took 4 years from there. Like sometimes this shit takes. So like I said, I think I said this on the recap. Phil Mickelson didn't win a major championship until he was 35 years old. He's going to end up with 6 at least in his career. And that is a lot for people that aren't golf fans. Like that, it's one of the best of all time. So this stuff can take time. Maybe it'll never happen, but to say that it would never will is just asinine, guys.
And we watched the shift to a more quarterback pass game balance structure work.
Right. You don't throw the baby out with the bathwater here with this stuff. We saw tremendous strides from this offense. I think they need to continue to invest in it. So some of the Eric stuff about, all right, well, we're going to have to be a little more creative. Sure. But like, don't allow that to keep you from making investments.
They still need a back. They need a more athletic offensive line. And they still, to me, I mean, I don't know. Who knows what Rashad Bateman can do next year? It simply has not worked for one reason or another. Driven me crazy. That's gone crazy on Twitter this week. Don't need to spend time on that, but they need a bigger, more physical presence on the perimeter. And that's why it kind of stinks about DeAndre Hopkins. I think a little tiny bit, someone of that caliber and stylistically that can make those physical plays above the rim and create late separation with physicality and nuance, I think is paramount as well. So
AJ Brown really does hate Jalen Hurts then.
Right.
Make that move. Call up
a lot of J.K. Dobbins stuff. I don't know. Dobbins, I would expect to get around the vet minimum.
I don't think I don't think he wants to come back. I think some people have commented that too. I agree with those guys.
Yeah, I don't think he's back either. I would wager no, and he's not going to get much money anywhere. He's going to have to go prove himself to stay healthy, and that the Achilles and the ACL is a lot to overcome. Hope he does, but that's tough. And Chad's point here. It's going to be sweeter when it does.
Sure.
That is why the reason that the Ravens winning the Super Bowl, which, hey, maybe they never do, maybe they do again. The Lions didn't do it haven't gone to this far in 30 years, let alone win their division. But the reason that was so sweet, the reason we all talk about it and always will, was because the year before, Billy Cundiff missed a kick. And right before that, Lee Evans got a ball punched out. And that made it that much sweeter. So
that was the same year, actually. Fun year. That was the same game, actually. It happened within a play of each other.
Yeah, I meant play.
One game
play before. It was a play before, right? It was Lee Evans directly.
I think that was third down. Yeah.
Play before. We went with it.
Sterling Moore.
When the ball's in the air, they win. When the field goal is getting set up, it's overtime, and then it's nothing. And then Ray Lewis might be retiring. Ed Reed might never win a Super Bowl, let alone in Baltimore. But then they did. So
Anquan Bolden drops a pass in Pittsburgh. Like this stuff, it happens. It's tough.
Say Flowers.
And then 2 years later, Anquan Bolden is turns into the best receiver of all time in the postseason. I mean, this stuff, I know, guys, I know it sucks right now. I feel really shitty about this situation, just like you guys do, but just never say never. That's my overall point with this stuff.
Definitely. And to Deuce 1042 always with us here, they don't have a ball winner. Definitely not. And that's why the strip sack drove me crazy.
Mike Evans.
If the Bucs let him go, I think they're the dumbest team ever. You don't let a first ballot Hall of Famer ever. If you have a lifelong first ballot Hall of Famer, keep them where they are, no matter what the cost is.
Tamper with him. I don't care. Just tamper with him.
Exactly. Yeah. Come on. Let's tamper.
Illegally tamper.
Let's rub our hands together. But they don't. And that's why it felt like the weak safety kind of rolls down. All of the routes were deep. The Ravens, it's a long developing play. Lamar Jackson hitched 4 times on that strip sack. He moved up once. He moved up a second time. He moved up a third time. Then on the fourth one, he starts to throw, and it just felt like he didn't know where, number one, he didn't know where Bateman was going to be. And number two, he didn't trust that if he put it up for him, it would be safe, right? So he waited too long. Ronnie Stanley does get beat. It was not a great rep for Ronnie Stanley. Had to wait a long time. I didn't like the play call. And that's why I talk about Nate Tice. He says that one specifically. He's like, it was there, though. And those are the margins of the playoff games. It was there. There was enough time to get it out, but the ball didn't come out because maybe Jackson doesn't know who's going to be there. I don't know.
What do you want us to do, Tyler?
Yeah, what the fuck is the answer, Tyler? Just bitch nonstop until it happens?
Yeah, we can't do anything. We can't fire John Harbaugh. We would have, for the fucking record here, by the way. Let's not confuse that.
I said it today. I would rather have Mike Macdonald. I would pull the trigger before the Seahawks signed him. I would rather have Mike Macdonald. If it was me calling shots based on the information I know, which is 1%, which is 1% of the 10% of the tip of the iceberg. But yeah, Tyler, what did we say all year? If not now, when? This was a great chance. It's not going to be a better chance. You're not going to get a better shot than making it to the game before the game.
And they didn't. So, I wouldn't have said they had a great shot going into the 2012.
It is, you're right. It is a coping mechanism because what else is there to do?
Yeah, I mean, I can't do anything.
Everything's a coping mechanism.
Yeah. I mean, we're really getting philosophical with this. I like it a lot. Life goes on.
I just don't know what you want me to do. What do you want me to do?
I don't know. I can't
cry. I cried. I've cried enough.
I haven't.
The season ended. We were laughing on the live stream after.
We were. I probably should cry. I think that was a real coping mechanism, was laughing, not crying my emotions out. We're toxic men in 2024.
I do disagree with this one. Lamar waited too long on the triple coverage. When Likely put his hand up, he was open. Lamar pumped to Bateman, turned his head, and then snapped and threw it. he basically turned his head as likely he was like putting his hand up, and the ball came right out from that point. So he kind of, this is where I'm making an ass out of you and me. Lamar says after the game, I was going for a PI ball, but he threw it so quickly once he saw it. I think he just thought it was going to be open, predetermined it, and let it rip. And then they tackled Isaiah Likely. Like, I genuinely think it wouldn't have been a pick if, well, it was always going to be pass interference. He couldn't. Where Likely, what happened is that Likely planted his feet. I can pull the play up if you want. Likely goes to plant, turn, and jump back for the ball and just gets tackled through. And that's pass interference. And I still think the Chiefs would have won, but that was pass interference.
Yeah, I agree. And especially with the way that game was called. If you want to call the game super tightly, if you want to be super involved, Sean Smith, that's okay. But just call it for both sides. That's all I ask. And I don't.
Michael Malgrave here. Would like your thoughts on this? Why does it feel so much like Lamar against narratives every year, no matter the narrative?
Because of the way
he doesn't have an agent.
Because he doesn't have an agent, and frankly, because of the way that he looks and talks. That is why.
Talks, plays, and doesn't have an agent.
And that's what's
that is always, there's no agent that's feeding the feelers. There's no one that's stoking the fire, keeping it under control there for the talking heads and doing all that. I think they consider that a waste. And instead, it feels like it does end up cutting out the middleman that maybe eases some of that tension. But then at the same time, Josh Allen has all of those things. He doesn't look the way Lamar does and doesn't talk the way that he does. And he is a big white guy. So there's that. But then
he's wholesome. He's the golden retriever. He's America's favorite. That's what he is, right?
He golfs and he's, relatable and, whatever.
Every fucking golf tournament soaking in the cameras. He's dating Haley Steinfeld. He's, that's what that is. And, I don't know. I don't want to get,
but nonetheless, it's Josh Allen against the same narratives, right?
Sure. And I like Josh Allen for the record. I
think he's fantastic.
Yeah. I don't know. And just overall, like this narrative shit, that's kind of why I want to I just can't, I don't want to engage with it anymore because it's just not fucking fair, man. Like it's just not fucking fair. Like all this guy does is win football games. I know he's had some dicey runs in the postseason, but he skipped the wild card round twice to our point. That should count for a win. He's now been to an AFC Championship. I know
I've said before, he is officially now 4-4 in the playoffs.
Yeah, and it's just like, 4-4, exactly. Let's call a fucking spade a spade here. He has played great.
Josh Allen has never gotten the 1 seed.
No, he hasn't. And they, 2 MVPs now he's going to have. That is unprecedented. Guy's going to the Hall of Fame, straight up. For real ball knowers, people that vote on this stuff, he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. So
I was about to Google. I'm trying to Google it. I know it's Rodgers, Brady, Manning, Favre. Who are the other all of the two-time MVP winners are in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. And I think Tyler, to follow up on, he said it'd be less frustrating if the head coach didn't come out. What did he say? Sorry.
I'm sorry. I was pulling something else up right when you were.
Yeah. He said it'd be less and didn't shrug his shoulders and chalk it. And this is kind of, I totally get it. You're saying you don't blame us. You're just providing perspective.
I know that's why a lot of people hate Harbaugh because of that, because of the media pressers and the fact that he kind of just keeps it shallow and people hate that. And they want to see this therapeutic, cathartic,
blaming himself. And
hey, maybe that would be good for everyone.
I get being annoyed.
They keep everything internal.
Yeah, he's just not going to do it. He's a praise in public, punishment in private kind of guy. And that's how good leaders typically operate. And I get it's frustrating as a fan. It annoys me a little bit sometimes. And some of the antics with him the last couple of years, I've been public about how it's annoyed me too. So I get where you're coming from with that.
And Jawan Sanders here with a great point too, that it's just easy because it's just like, it's almost like
absolutely
the algorithm, so to speak, whatever you want to call it.
It's Stephen A and all those guys go on there every single day, and that's going to lead the show, just like the Dallas Cowboys and LeBron James and Aaron Rodgers are going to lead their show every day until LeBron is retired, Aaron is retired, and the Cowboys will always and forever be that number one topic because it's just what does numbers on those types of shows.
Here's your homework. I think this is a great idea. Ashley Blosser here. I'm going to go back and watch some footage from Peyton in the playoffs. Please go watch them get shut out 44-0 by the Jets.
Listen to Season in Between, the whole 4th episode. Half of it is about the Colts and their come up to winning that Super Bowl in 2006.
It's on this channel, Season in Between. The Season in Between being 06.
It's got its own channel too, actually now.
So what the Season in Between for this one, if the Ravens were to repeat 12 years again, it would be the same thing. If the Ravens won next year, would be 2016.
Yeah, which 8-8 and Steve Smith's last game in Cincinnati. Wow, what an absolute thrill that would be to break that season down. They started out 3-0, if I remember correctly.
And that's the thing. Like the Peyton Manning stuff, really, I feel like it is a repeat in a way. Arguably the most dominant players. Peyton Manning is arguably the most dominant regular season player ever. I would say he is the most quarterback player. He was
so consistent. He was a machine. He was the MacBook. That's what BP called him, Bernard Pollard.
Yes, he was an absolute machine. Same thing with Jackson, and it gets into the playoffs, and they just aren't the same. And Peyton was eventually able to overcome, and the way that he overcame it was still sloppy. It was still sloppy. So
it was, yeah. They
exactly.
had to. I mean, that 2006 season, they went to running the football and they played good defense, kind of out of nowhere. That wasn't what that regular season was like for them, and they just went to it and they beat the Patriots.
They transitioned to playoff football.
They got over that hump, and then they smoked the Bears in the Super Bowl. So,
are the Ravens the Cowboys of the AFC? I guess is the way to put it. They're the closest thing to it. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Steelers, maybe.
They've won a few playoff games.
Their last 4?
Yeah, Steelers are honestly not the worst comparison, but they have been kind of mediocre lately here. The Ravens are at least good in the regular season, so they're, Steelers good. The Ravens have been pretty great in the regular season.
Right. So, I mean, to look back on everything, Mike Macdonald gone. I'm going to say Denard Wilson is the DC. I'm going to say Anthony Weaver stays on staff. I'm going to say Zach Orr goes to Seattle with Mike Macdonald. Apparently, Mike Macdonald really wanted him back in Baltimore. And John Harbaugh another year. In my opinion, I think this is the last year of John Harbaugh. I think it's his last year under contract. And I think that could lead to a Slowick or to a Ben Johnson or to, who knows? It could lead to ... I don't think it will be someone internal. I think there will be a comprehensive search. And I don't know. I do also think the Ravens have a chance to be really good again, but injuries and the variable questions of the unknown and the uncontrollable are just that. And that is why, to Tyler Shore's point earlier, it is a blundered opportunity because they were healthy enough to get there for sure. They pissed it away. So that's why it burns. That's why it sucks. And it is infuriating. But at the end of the day, it does make it sweeter. And this is your homework. Go watch Peyton Manning in the playoffs and then just try and think about how sweet it'll be when they do it. And if there is a script writer, I mean, hey, every 12 years, right? So through 2025. So you're saying through next year.
Yeah, 2 more seasons.
2 more seasons.
Contracts also really don't matter with coaches. Like if they want to fire,
especially if there's 1 year left and there's a payout or something, it's much less substantial. Than
I think Steve Bisciotti can probably afford a payout too. It's not,
Jack Crick here. I mean, honestly, yeah.
I saw this floating around. I mean, that would be, he's an Annapolis guy, right?
I think that would be awesome.
I think
it would be kind of like a Wade Phillips.
Yeah. I mean, Guy just wants to coach football. That's what we know. And if he can't get a head coaching gig, why not come to a great organization? Chill in the gazebos down in Annapolis a little bit. Commute up to work.
Not a terrible idea, but I do think it's going to end up being Denard Wilson. He's very highly talked of, and I mean, hey, maybe he's the next coach of the Baltimore Ravens too. Yeah. And again, and who knows? Maybe the Ravens aren't as upset as we are because they know what they have internally and know what's next, and. Maybe they very well could view someone else. They could view Weaver, who also got head coach interviews. They could view Denard Wilson, who just came in here.
Yeah, that's the vertical slice we're looking at it through. We really only see a small amount of the prism here. They have the full picture. So
certainly, Baltimore football history living up to its name of an account with the comment here. Belichick started on the Baltimore Colts staff under Ted Marchibroda in 1975. Who's the
most talented quarterback that Bill Belichick has ever seen?
BJ.
Yep, Burt Jones. He really threw people for a loop with that comment, and I love him for it.
He did. And Nick Voss here, maybe in year 2, Monken System's better. That's the other thing, right? I mean,
Monken System was good.
But it was at first they were forcing growth, right? They were doing the uncomfortable, it felt like, and not putting the training wheels on. But then it does feel like ultimately their death is partially a result of them not putting the training wheels back on in addition to the muscle that they had grown, right? So I feel like the Chiefs are kind of the opposite deal, right? They struggled mightily and probably tried to foster their own growth, force some receivers into some uncomfortable situations, lose some games, and then they go back to doing what they do. And they know they've got that in the bag. So you've got to remember what you have in the bag. And I don't know, man.
I haven't touched on this yet. I will be voraciously preying on their downfall. I have nothing against Taylor Swift personally. I have nothing against those fans.
Taylor Swift's fine. I think she's good for the sport.
Yeah, it's just like the whole, I don't know. It just feels like a haves and a have-not situation. It just feels like the cool kids stuff the nerds into a locker again in this one, and I'm feeling very much like a nerd right now. Sitting in the locker with the fucking vents and the lights just filtering in on me, feeling like a loser, and I am praying. I don't. It might not be today. It might not be tomorrow. It might not be the next day, but I will be praying on their downfall. And Travis Kelce and his stupid thirst bucket of a brother, and them going after my sweet boy Justin Tucker, making that into way bigger of a thing than
we can talk about that now. I muted Tucker, I muted Kelce, I muted a bunch of stuff. I want to start out by saying kickers are not real people. Therefore, they are not something to be running around 3 days later still talking about.
Right. Like that. Like,
you're like proud of bullying the fucking kicker?
Yeah,
sick,
like
dude.
And like Justin, if you looked at his comments, like he was very level-headed about it. He was like, look, I was just trying to do my normal thing. And like Patrick and Travis, they were taking it a little more seriously. Whatever. And he was very magnanimous about it. I think Travis Kelce's coming out and motherfucking him in the media. Like, what are you fucking clowns doing? I am rooting so hard for my guy Shanny and Big Cock Brock to shove it down these guys' throats in 2 weeks. It might not happen, but I will be there. And if they make the Super Bowl again next year, I will be rooting against them again. I am fucking sick of these two. I fucking hate them. And
this is good though, right? Isn't this good? What are we talking about?
It's great for the NFL. It's great to have rivalries.
Rivalry. You want the rivalry. You want the hatred. The Ravens and Chiefs had a lot of beef a couple of years ago, it felt like, and now they don't, and now they do again, right? The Bills are worn out. The Chiefs just smack the Bills over and over and over again. So
they stuffed the great city of Buffalo and those fine, hardworking blue collar people in a locker. They did it to us, and they're bragging about bullying a fucking kicker. Shame on you, Kansas City Chiefs. Shame on you, Travis Kelce. Good luck with your media career. Good luck with Taylor Swift. Your day is coming, and I will be there, and I will be celebrating it. I will make my stand against you.
Let's go to KC.
Yeah, I'm down. I'd love to try some burnt ends.
Let's go to KC next year. If you're listening, let's all go to KC. Let's roll up in that bitch next year.
Yeah, I'm in.
Go protect Justin down on the field there. The Van Noy thing was stupid here. That ran, I kind of wanted to end with, but I just kind of don't want this episode to end, I feel like. I don't know. It's the end. This is the end.
We can keep going. Oh, what do you talk about? It's the end. We're going to keep this.
But it's like the end of the year, and I'm not quite ready for it. And I was so burnt out probably Monday and Tuesday. I was just like exhausted from the playoffs and the drinking and all of those things, but I just don't want it to end. I'm not like ready to shift to draft content. Cole and I are going to be doing draft content. We have a whole podcast we're going to do, but oh my God, I'm just not ready for it. Maybe that's what people are so upset about, And I don't know about even just the Ravens alone. I'm just not ready for football to end when it's just a Super Bowl left. That sucks. The Super Bowl kind of sucks because it's such a commercialized thing. There's no red zone on, none of that. There's not other games. There's not another game after.
You're going to have a great time. What are you talking about? You got a fun couple weeks coming up here.
I mean, that's one thing, but the football is over, and that sucks. And I feel like I wasn't ready for it. I feel like this last month drained me. The playoffs have been draining physically, mentally, emotionally. Cole comes and stays here with his fella. People are here every weekend. I have to clean up after. I got to mop the floors here, do all this stuff, but I'm still not ready for it to end. Still not ready for it to end.
Yeah, you know what? Weather's going to get nicer. Days are going to get a little bit longer. I'm looking forward to that.
It's golf season. It's golf season now.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's going to be. It's going to be nice. It's going to be a nice reprieve. This was such a long season, to your point. These seasons are too long now. I've made that point abundantly clear. It's 8 months of this fucking thing just dominating my life, and I love it to death. But like at a certain point, I am just happy to move on from it. And you know what?
You did, yeah. You, my sweet boy, my sweet prince does get worn down.
I do.
You love baseball season.
I do, and I'm excited. And listen, great news on the Orioles front too. We're finally moving on from the the Logan Roy ripoff.
Truly unbelievable.
Yeah, the Kendall Roy ripoff, I should say.
The thing that I know now that I think is hilarious. So Peter in Georgia, what I was told is that the Angelos family has a 70% stake. John's stake of the Orioles was 2%.
I mean, that's like, if that doesn't paint a picture for you, I don't know what
Peter, exactly. That literally is I'm going to say Kendall Roy in that with
and he still found a way to be somehow the defining voice of this franchise for the past year, and just foot in mouth every other time he appeared in front of a microphone. It was amazing.
It was truly. I mean, I can't imagine how poor Kevin Brown and some of these people feel.
I think the Reds are on the come up here, Tyler. That's what I thought.
The Reds are pretty exciting.
Yeah, Kevin Brown, like that encourages me that maybe he'll stick around for longer. I thought he was for sure gone.
That's the shitty part, right? Like, I wasn't, I didn't really think of him when I was watching games by myself. I like to watch by myself. I will say, this is a poo-poo thing to say, but I like to watch baseball on TV more than I like to watch in person. A lot.
Yeah, I mean,
I like to go to the game for the social experience, but I like to watch football in person better than I like to watch on TV. Like,
I feel like every time we go to a game, we just wind up at the bar, just chopping it up.
It's kind of it's tough. Baseball is kind of a tough watch in person. I think having a strike zone in the stadium is
a scoreboard situation. For as much as I love Camden, the scoreboard situation is not great either. You got like the score bugs along like the when you're.
I need some cameras in there and stuff, or just jumbotrons. I mean, they need a lot better.
They need that exactly, because like I do lose
audio, the video, the AV, the visuals, all of it. It needs to be stepped up. That's definitely priority number one. But
yeah,
exciting on that front. I think you and Eric recorded a podcast. Well, you did record a podcast yesterday. You can check that out on the channel too.
Yeah, kind of a live reaction to the Rubenstein news.
I still haven't really I don't recall much of what happened in the 49ers Lions game. I have no idea really. I just know they came back and
we watched that together.
I was very drunk, Jake.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you kind of had to quit the podcast halfway through. I was hoping not.
You guys kept going. You guys kept going, and I was 3 sheets to the wind. I was like shotgunning beers. I broke the freaking table in here. Like lightly wrestling.
I deliberately didn't want to repeat the divisional round thing. I was like, all right, I'm going to keep myself a little more in order this time around. So that's what I did for that one. But yeah,
you also just weren't that out of this world. So it was probably a little easier because you were able to.
Right. Well, yeah, but I mean, like I'm saying, that's because I didn't get super drunk at the game, which I did with the Texans game. So yeah. True Detective season 4 still going on? I got
outstanding. I'm caught up there. So good.
I got to catch up on episode 3. I saw 2. Sunday nights are kind of a weird drop for me right now. I don't know what's going on with that, but enjoying it.
Well, there you go. HBO's back.
Smells and sounds of baseball, Ashley. The crack of the bat, things of that nature.
So, I mean, I feel better. This is what we needed.
Yeah,
we had to work through this a lot going on, all of those major events in a 3-day span, including Rubenstein taking over, which like takes the stink off of the Ravens, but then also takes the shine away from Rubenstein, I feel like, because you're still kind of like,
I'll take it. I needed it. I needed something. And it happened at the right time too. I think like, I don't know. He's not like I said on the pod last night, like he's not going to make changes right away, but like next offseason. And it's funny. I said to Eric, this is what you were saying all along. You don't expect to move last offseason. Don't expect to move this coming offseason. But once he gets in there, Big Daddy Dave makes some moves in free agency or the trade market. We'll see. And he resigns all the #young core, hopefully. That's all.
100%. 100%. I mean, they need an ace, a couple things coming down the pipe here. The other thing here too is that I think that Chiefs fans did not think this was going to happen because of how they were in the middle of the season and not having a receiver and all that kind of stuff. And just, oh my God, they've been insufferable this week.
They're the worst. They're the fucking worst.
They made it and they are back in full tilt, full force. And I don't think they quite cared as much because they have been so good. And I also think I think they quietly might have had a little bit of
they did. They'll never admit it, but they did.
Right. Now, why would they in hindsight? Yeah,
of course. Yeah. And Tyler,
how
hopefully
the
more
internet
active this offseason than last. Yeah, we will be. So obviously the podcast got effectively canceled like around this time last year, and then we took some time off, and then we joined X52. We were much more Orioles centric, trying to get the Ravens stuff together. We really didn't even want to do that much Ravens stuff because the Orioles were doing so well. The Jackson contract stuff was going on. I'm excited to dive into offseason stuff this year. I'm into it.
It'll be fun to watch it go down, and it's a huge offseason. They have a full slate of draft picks. They're going to have, in my opinion, I mean, out of Humphrey, Marcus Williams, and Ronnie Stanley, somebody's got to take an actual pay cut. Like I say restructure, and then people are like, oh, well, they can just restructure it if they want to. I'm like, no. I feel like they need to approach Ronnie Stanley and be like, look, we have paid you a shitload of cash.
Yeah.
Can we cut that number down? Can you? Yeah. What is your current value on the free market? And if he takes that as fuck you, I'm leaving and going to find out, then it's all right. And if not, then take a little pay cut. I mean, Marcus Williams, I think, is still a good player and good, but I want to have maybe a little bit of that conversation with him. And I don't know, man, we love Marlon Humphrey to death, but he's racked up some mileage. He was a very as physical as a corner as there was in the NFL. And that has where when you're a track athlete like that and you're hitting the way he was and punching and taking on stuff, it's a little tough to keep being a twitchy track athlete the way that you're required to be in the NFL as a corner. I think it's quite tough. So a couple conversations to be had there. I don't know, man. The Ravens can open up as much money as they want to. They started using more void years. They can open up enough money to do whatever they want. But I just don't think they're going to use free agency to find studs the way they have in the past. And they're going to shift to kind of back to, wanting to draft well. And they fucking have. And that's one of the funniest things about this whole 5-year period is the 2020 draft class and the Eric DaCosta conversations. And I will say, like, the more I learn about football and the NFL, ultimately, always the less I know. I get my mind blown all the time about how stupid I am.
The more I see, the less I know, the more
Exactly.
I love to let it go. Ayo.
We're going to get copyrighted for that now. Now we're getting copyrighted for that. Great.
No, we'll stop.
We're not.
This is way too low.
Yeah, right. That won't happen anyway. But drafting is about developing. Like, coaches are what make picks good, I think. And so we do all this draft analysis and, hey, there are players and it's fun and I do believe in it. But my God, you have to be able to put guys in the position to succeed. You have to draft players that love football and love working out and love practicing more than they are talented. That is what makes football players good. And I don't know those things. I've gone to Mobile in the Senior Bowl and I can get a little, it's like having an eyedropper of a taste of it, but you got to know that the guys love football.
One single crumb of knowledge.
Exactly. So if you don't love it, you're not going to be sustainably good. And it's like, that's why I think of the guy, Patrick Queen, who we haven't brought up. And I guess we can kind of talk about maybe some of the other free agents, stuff like that too. But
you are a Seattle Seahawk.
I don't think so. I don't think he goes. I think they have Jordan Brooks. And I don't think he goes there. I think he goes somewhere else. I think he goes to Houston or something. Okay. But he has to love it. How can you know that he was looked at as a bust? He was not playing consistently well. He was young. He was emotional. But he had to have loved the work because all of the things went wrong and he still came out on the other side because he loved it, right? You have to, or else you're not going to sustain being good. That's why we can see guys come into the league and play well and then they disappear, right? They like it. They're good. But to be someone that gets a second contract and wins Super Bowls, you have to fucking love that shit. And I do think that is something that the Ravens have filtered in and out very accurately. I think they got rid of Orlando Brown. I think they got rid of Hayden Hurst. I think they got rid of Hollywood Brown. I think that they're all very talented, and especially Brown and Brown. But I don't know that they loved it enough to support what the contracts that they were asking were. So they got value back for them. And then now you've got Kyle Hamilton. He fucking loves it. Tyler Linderbaum fucking loves it. I think Justin Madubuike loves it. I think they're going to keep him.
Zay Flowers.
Zay Flowers fucking loves this shit. And that is what I think they've done such a good job doing, picking up players that fucking love this shit and having a plan in place for them, making sure that they got more developmentally appropriate coaches like Keith Williams for receivers that are dialed in on what it takes and have worked with really high-level receivers, things like that. So I think that is what has made the Ravens drafts, quote unquote, so good, is that they got guys that loved it maybe a little bit more. And part of that goes back to something that a lot of people talk shit about. They basically draft pretty much, this year wasn't quite as extreme. There's I think the first 3 drafts for DaCosta, they drafted one player who wasn't a team captain. They are drafting the guys that fucking love it. So I think that's cool. I think that's a good culture. And I think that's what you need to be successful. You have to love putting in the work. And that's what I think they'll be looking for. So that's what I'm going to try and keep my eye out for as we kind of get into draft season here.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be interesting to see who fits in with this team. You know, this is going to be the highest or lowest, depending on how you look at it. They've drafted in quite a long time. 2022, they're pretty up there. They wound up picking twice in the first round that year. And then obviously last year they're at 22 or thereabouts. They get Flowers. So yep, they'll be up there a little bit. And, maybe they're going to have to get creative. And ultimately I am excited to see what DaCosta does as far as replenishing this roster and the different strategies he's going to have to take on with Jackson's contract the way that it is and developing into the way that it is. But ultimately, man, he has given me no reason to distrust him. I was a little annoyed at the roster construction and some of that stuff coming into this year, but he has renewed my faith in him very much. John Harbaugh, we've had the conversation. It's annoying. I think they'll still be competitive under him. Maybe this will be his last year, to your point, but I don't know. I wouldn't expect it to be a non-competitive year. They're always going to play hard for that guy. I think they love that guy. I think tempers are going to settle down a little bit. Things are going to calm down. We're going to have a full offseason. Guys are going to come back in the offseason. Guys that love it, and they're going to be ready to work. So excited for all that to take place. You and I obviously love doing this. It was a frustrating way for it to end, but this was my favorite.
This year proved that we definitely love it.
Yeah.
What we love
3 times a week, baby. Just add it every single week.
We've crushed it this year. We've had our renewed hope. And futures, bro, we're thrilled with our progress personally. I think the Ravens, you mentioned some of those guys. They got Kyle Hamilton, Kyle Linderbaum, Zay Flowers looks like a fucking dude. Lamar Jackson's under center. And they've got a couple other really nice players. I think Madubuike comes back. And, another fun comment here before maybe we send it off, but Bateman's an interesting conversation. Someone says Bateman don't love it. Someone says he loves fashion. I think we're about to find out. It's a contract year for him. I think we're about to find out if he loves it or not, because he's had kind of that same Patrick Queen deal, right? The flashes, the inconsistency, picked right around the same pick. So I think we're still going to find out this year. Does Rashad Bateman love it? We certainly love it. And I'm going to wager on the fact that he does. We got Crazy saying he's a dog. I think he's a dog too, but guess we'll find out. And man, hour 30, I feel good. Feel like we crushed this year, you and I. Very proud of what you've done, Jake. Very proud of myself. And now we're going to be able to grow a lot more. We did a lot of fun things. Felt like at games this year, going to tailgates, interacting with listeners, and we have a lot more coming up. Orioles season should be a lot of fun. Now Eric gets to start to cook. So if you're an Orioles fan, stay with us. And we're going to cook this year. We got some big things hopefully coming with the Orioles. We'll see what happens as a result of some of the transitions and transactions that are going on with the sale, but a lot of fun stuff on the schedule, and we're continuing to grow. So we appreciate your support. If you're still with us, please subscribe, throw a like on this bad boy, and fuck them up, baby. Let's go.
Yep. I think Jumbo said it's going to continue once a week, hopefully on Wednesdays. Scheduling obviously can get weird sometimes, but just going to aim for Wednesdays every single week. That will be your Ravens vertical to keep up with it this season. Like we said, we were doing the 3 times a week for the preview review type thing, but it's going to be the once a week on Wednesdays. And then sometimes, maybe we'll go live sometimes.
Jumbo said we plan on keeping once a week. Once a week, we're going to keep it this day. We committed to that, and routine has been great for us. So we're talking about some things. Jakey and I just also we do this because we like talking to each other, and it's therapeutic for us too. We want to do some maybe film and movie content a little bit. Maybe do a movie a month where we go see a movie. We talked about that. I really want to do that. And then the listeners, you guys can go watch that movie too. If you have the chance, we'll try and announce it maybe the prior month, what we're going to go watch the next month. And then we can go check that out. Something we plan on doing. And I just want to watch more movies in theater because I love it and it's fun.
Yeah, I'm right there.
Exit 52 golf tournament. We could, Oh yeah. Zzz. We could get
Like
that sizzling.
Like that a lot. Get some of the video cameras out. Maybe that would be a lot of fun.
The last thing here, Greg, it was going to be Kyle Hamilton.
God damn, I was going to say that. Yeah, like man, that would have been so much fun. I would have been at that one if I had, if I had beaten this fucking cold yet or not. I would have gone there and infected him with it. But yeah, it was going to be Kyle Hamilton at Jimmy's. Sorry that didn't come to fruition for you guys. Clifton Park, of course. Shout out. Love the park. Love both parks. Love Forest Park as well. Just true architectural marvels of the golf world. I'm a big fan. But yeah, overall, yeah, you laid it out pretty well there. The world is kind of our oyster content wise, but this will be your Rock for Ravens content every Wednesday. Like I said, we'll probably go live for the big moments. Probably go live randomly too. Try to get the YouTube numbers pumping a little bit. But overall, yeah, this is just going to keep rolling, and then Orioles content is going to kick up for you all that are interested. So be sure to tune into that. You can stay tuned in with us at Exit 52 Podcast across all social media. That's Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. I am at Jake Louque. That's LOUQUE. Spencer's at Ravens 4 Dummies. That is the number 4 in the middle. You can find Brian at Barstool Banks. You got to get him involved in the jumbo set a little bit. I feel like now's a good time. Get a little more time between both parties. Would love that, Greg. Get Kyle Hamilton on the pod. You can find Taylor at Taylor Smythe 10. You can find Eric at EDITTI 22. We thank you guys for a very fun year. Like I said, my favorite Ravens season in a very long time, even with the ending. It was a bitter way for it to end, but you know what?
We're sad because we wanted more.
Yeah, I wouldn't trade it for anything, though. It's, I love this group of players, love this group of coaches, love Mike Macdonald. Sorry to see him go. Have my misgivings about that, but it is what it is. We're just going to keep this thing rocking. So thanks again to you all, and we will talk to you again very soon.
See ya.
Arrivederci.
Really, really hard, and they execute the system, and that's what it's all about.
There
Yes, sir.
it is.
Trust.
Big trust.
Big trust, baby.
Hey, yes, sir.
Right on cue. Hey, right on cue. Hey, let me.